Welcome to Delightfully Dysfunctional, a podcast about navigating the emotions of the human condition and the challenges that come with it. I'm Kaylani Persian Mason, a psychotherapist and life coach with James Timmons, an ever-curious human. This is not a replacement for mental health therapy. Please seek out mental health care if that's what you're needing. This is an opportunity for self-healers to dive deep and understand more about themselves. Welcome back to Delightfully Dysfunctional. I'm Kaylani, and I'm here with Jamesy James.
Hi, everyone.
And today I want us to talk about the concept of what is fair, because I feel that it's an idea that I see my clients sometimes get stuck in, this idea of their suffering isn't fair. It's been too much. It's more than others. The situation wasn't fair. There's this sense of injustice that really fuels them. And it's not that there aren't situations where we should want to strive for justice, but this is a world that it's not a fair world. Yeah. And I think if we have this belief that that should be embedded into all things, all interactions, all hardship, we're going to continually be disappointed.
I mean, I'm definitely in that camp of, you know, when I'm sitting in a season of, you know, a lot of pain, then I'll feel like this is unfair. I'm the only one experiencing this, you know. I mean, I know that that's not true, but you know, you're not super rational when you're in a place of pain. But so tell me.
I've been in that place too. Yeah. I remember just like looking out the window and just being like, how can these people be like living these happy lives, and they don't have what's going on in my life, and
right?
This sense of unfairness, and especially in moments when I felt really, you know, I was around really big families growing up, and it was often just me and my mom, or me and my mom and my stepdad for holidays, and a lot of the time just me and my mom, and a feeling of like, this isn't fair. Where's my connection? Where's my sense of family? And this idea that I want to present to you, and it's one that I know will take time to sink in. It's taken me years revisiting it and continually revisiting it for it to really have a hold in my worldview, in my perspective of how I just operate in my daily life now. But for that example of like not having any family, really being a lonely child, not just an only child, but a lot of isolation, it has also meant that I'm really good at reaching out and seeking connection. I'm always good at trying to keep in contact with friends that are scattered all over the world. Yeah. That I don't take those bonds for granted. And it means it's even like, it's a huge part of the fuel of even this podcast is like, I want to seek connection always at all times. That's why I'm in this profession that I'm in. I feel like connection to another human on a deep level is so beautiful. Partially because maybe I didn't have a lot of it growing up, but there's this beautiful visual that I come back to almost as if it's an arrow where as you pull back, like the equal and opposite effect is what you get. And I think we've talked about that before, this idea of, you know, the hardship that we have also being what propels us for something really beautiful in our life. So I'm propelling towards an equal and opposite in that way. And this is a belief that I think we can all try to adopt, even in these really painful moments as we heal. So I reference this book a lot, but it was a pivotal book for me in my growth, and that's Man's Search for Meaning. Do you recall me mentioning
Viktor Frankl?
It? Viktor Frankl.
I own that book.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm looking at it over on the shelf.
I read the first section of it, and then I didn't finish it. Like I read him like all the way through when they rescued him out of the concentration camp, and then I was like, oh, okay, that's a good happy ending. I'm gonna leave it there.
Sounds good. Yeah. And he really weaves in like moments of his personal story, but then kind of taking a step of just his eyes as a psychologist and what he witnessed and observed in how people found meaning in their suffering, whether through love or a spiritual belief, a sense of duty, or something that was helping them better able to cope with the circumstances.
Yeah.
And I think as a therapist, sometimes it can be frustrating when there's clients who really they want to stay stuck in their suffering.
Yeah.
They bat away the idea of any of these options or perspective shifts, like almost in a very untrusting way.
Right.
And this seeking to really have an attitude of perseverance, of strength and perseverance is really important. And I think it's something that we actually need to strive to form for all of ourselves individually.
Yeah.
That we can't always control our circumstances. I think that's a difficult one, especially in a world where we seek to do so efficiently.
Yeah.
Everything is based on efficiency and ease, and we can't control everything going on in our life.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of people blame themselves when something doesn't go the way that they'd hoped.
Right.
When oftentimes it's just all we can do is control our response to the situation.
Yeah.
A beautiful piece of what Viktor Frankl believes in and argues, is that the last of our human freedoms is the ability to choose our attitude in any given circumstance.
That's super challenging. I mean, there's almost like a default attitude when you're in pain. Like, and I was thinking as you're talking, have you heard you've heard the phrase like time heals all wounds?
Yeah.
I was thinking, I don't know if that's true, because like normally, like when you were like when I was a kid, if I was really good at isolating when I felt lonely, and then a certain, if something broke my heart, I would just suppress long enough to where it no longer had like this power over me. But I was still like not doing the strong and courageous thing and healing, it was just like, oh, well, now I have a scab and a scar. But the pain is still in there, but I didn't fully heal. And so, this season that I'm in now, I'm really committed to healing. And I've noticed that it is such like an uncomfortable thing to do, to like really go into like the things that you've neglected your whole life. And then finally like resist certain coping mechanisms. That's the hardest part. But I'm sorry, I'm going on like a rabbit trail.
You're not.
Okay.
Tell me what feels painful about it.
Well, because your coping mechanisms were there, like they become such like like a thing that you turn to, almost like an addiction. And so when you resist turning to those coping mechanisms because I want to, like I'm resisting turning to my normal coping mechanisms because I want to sit in my pain and I want to get to the bottom of it because I don't want to feel those pains anymore. I don't want to numb them away by like the coping mechanisms, and so like not like,
so you're left to feel them.
Yeah, I'm left to feel them and to learn them and to like really like get to the bottom of them. But the thing is, and I've been telling, so August 1st was really like when I made this decision, like, okay, this month it's gonna be the most pivotal month of my whole life. Like the person that I am after on September 1st is going to be me for the rest of my life. That like all the things that I have wanted for years is more likely to happen because that version of me is now going to be healed. I'm not going to have I'm not going to try to escape or anything. I'm just going to be like this really like pure, like stronger version of myself, be like healed, Anyway, so where was I going with that? You asked a question.
No, I was just asking like what makes that process painful, and you're describing it.
Yeah, because it's really it's a wrestling and like it's really uncomfortable
right.
because I'm not turning to my like little comforts.
Right.
Anyway.
No, that makes complete sense. Right. The things that kind of like a pacifier or a baby blanket give you some sense of soothing in your pain.
Exactly.
Now, what do I have? I'm grasping for what's next and having to develop something new, and any new skill is uncomfortable and kind of clunky. Yeah.
Well, the thing I'm left with is me. And that's the thing I've been like so resistant on like allowing to like manifest or like evolve. And so it's like, in order for me to be my strongest version, my best self, which I was telling you before we started recording that I've learned is just is just me authentically. And in order to be that person, I have to strip away those coping mechanisms and those all the traumas that we like bear our whole lives are what like gets us derailed from like who we truly are. And so getting back to that person this season is really critical.
Yeah.
Sorry, I feel like I was talking in circles, but I hope that made sense.
No, it did. It does. It makes me think of actually coming back to and tying it all in back to a term that Frankl used, is this concept of tragic optimism. And it's this ability to remain hopeful and find meaning despite life's inevitable suffering and loss.
Yeah.
And I hear you, like there's elements of that in what you're grappling with too. And a real striving for alignment in your values and beliefs to live authentically. And I think it's that striving that's really like a really beautiful quality about you, James. Like you never stop striving, and you're humble as you like notice. As you're noticing, like bring in new insights, you're like, oh, I need to look at that. I need to think about that. And there's a lot of people in this world who feel threatened by the idea of changing anything in their internal belief system or in their concept of themselves.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sorry.
No, just like that's just it's a strength that you should feel really good about.
Well, thank you. Well, I mean, I was gonna say, like, how many times and this is a question for our listeners too. Like, how many times have you done something that you knew was uncharacteristic, but it was like a triggered response, and you go, "That's not me," you know? And then alluding to the book that you were actually talking about,
I'll bring that in.
And it was so like the relationship that I just came out of. There was a few times where I noticed that like my attachment issues were tied to like some traumas from the past, and then I remember being embarrassed in that relationship, going like, that's not me, like this is not who I am, you know, like you're getting a really bad version of me. And so and so now I'm kind of like, okay, I don't want to be so derailed from the person that I am to where like I'm embarrassed by the way I react to like certain things, you know? And so it really just comes down to healing so that you can be you.
No, I think you're good. It's funny you keep stopping yourself because I think that you're making good points.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, like our healing, our trauma and the automatic responses, the coping skills that are maladaptive, meaning not healthy.
Yeah.
You know, no longer healthy.
Right. And
the addictions, all of those things, the way that we repress, it can get in the way and cloud the who we really are.
You know what's cool about the word maladaptive? You know, the Spanish word for bad is mal.
Oh.
Yeah. And so bad adaptive, that's what the word, that's like.
Well, I mean, that makes, like, all words have like a Latin origin, right? Or a lot of them.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting.
And so, but then the word adaptive is in there. So like the word maladaptive, like what literally means these bad habits that you've inherited based on like your adapting to certain, you know, is that correct? Mm-hmm. And so like, yeah, then you enter into a certain context in a relationship, whatever, where like you're triggered and it connects you to those places where you had to adapt with those bad behaviors, which are maladaptive behaviors.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, and then there's adaptive behaviors that we have too, and we should be grateful for those as well. And those are things like that ability to strive for growth and insight and have that element of personal growth. All of my best friends have that element. So it's not a surprise to me that is, I think that's a big piece of like the chemistry on air that we have is this like continual desire to understand and like, what does it mean to grow? What does it mean to have that self-assessment and be able to dialogue about it, because that isn't everybody.
Yeah. You're right. And that's kind of like the culture that I'm trying to cultivate.
Yeah, exactly. So. It's been a while, but I'd also at one point have read this short poem, and it's one that I've read to clients many times as well. And I think it really touches on giving ourselves some grace as we discover some of those maladaptive behaviors or shortcomings or just responses that we're wanting to shift, because we can, we as humans want that like automatic result, and it's not so easy.
Right.
So it's called Autobiography in 5 Short Chapters. It's by Portia Nelson. Chapter 1. I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I am lost. I am helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes me forever to find a way out. Chapter 2. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk, and I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place, but it isn't my fault. It still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. Chapter 4. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5. I walk down another street.
I was waiting for chapter 5 to be like, but then I turned back around and jumped back in the hole. No, I love that it's called autobiography, because I was like, ooh, that's me. Well, hence the term, hence the name.
But I think you're not on chapter 1.
Yeah.
You're not on chapter 1. And so we should like recognize our growth just in being able to pay attention to where we are in reference to the whole.
That's very true. And I thank you for that. Because one of my most recent discoveries, and I talked about this in the last episode, where like I referenced Brianna Wiest, like it's not so much like putting something down, but it's not picking it back up. And like to me, that was the coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
Like turning to those same familiar bad habits after like a painful thing. But it's like, no, walk around the hole, and now you're beginning down a new street that you've never seen before. Yeah. So that's still like aligns right along with that whole thing. Because I believe that for me was like such like a new insight into like my becoming my best self. Where it's just like, don't pick up the things that got you into that hole, And
it really allows us to take responsibility for our own life and our choices.
Yeah.
To live in alignment with those values and not put the blame on outside things.
Right.
Not that there isn't hardship, right? I mean, this book, Man's Search for Meaning, was written by a man who was put into a concentration camp.
Yeah.
And, tortured and his family exterminated. This is extreme. There would be every reason in the world that this person has to live an angry, bitter, hard life,
right.
Not wanting connection, not wanting to fully live.
Yeah, and nobody would blame him for that.
Right. Yeah. Like, what other level of hardship is there?
Yeah, that's pretty much
its depth.
Yeah, that's pretty much the peak.
Yeah. and to come out with this perspective of how we can really pursue our purpose and find meaningful activities in a perspective. I mean, that just takes so much courage.
Yeah.
And what I love when I read stories of hardship and resilience is to remember that they are human like I am human. Like, I have those ingredients in me too.
Yeah. And that's honestly one thing that I'll think about where, all my hardships that I went through, I have a little bit of a gratitude because now I'm like way more like open to talk with others about their hardships, because then I'm like, oh man, I can, like we can glean things from each other. And so that is a beautiful way to look at it.
Yeah. So now I will share some pieces about the book that we were talking about off the air. And before I do, I'm not trying to push a perspective of a belief in a higher power, although I think that there are many mental health benefits.
Right.
I was somewhere between an atheist and agnostic for a long time. And I have just come to find personally that a belief in something is actually a really mentally healthy thing for me.
Yeah.
And it gives me this ability to cope with loss and have more mental resilience and a reduced fear and anxiety around death.
Yeah.
But my belief system is not tied to like really any religion.
Yeah.
So I'm not personally tied to any religion. However, this story is about a conversation between a little soul and God, and it's called The Little Soul and the Sun. And it's a children's parable adapted from the Conversations with God books by Neil Donald Walsh. So in the book, there is a little soul, and he is eagerly trying to understand who he is. And he approaches God with this burning question of, who am I? And in God's loving wisdom, he says, you are the light. And this doesn't satisfy his curiosity. He wants to experience what it means to be the light. And it's explained to him that to truly understand what it means to be light, you actually must be surrounded in darkness. For where he is, he's surrounded in light. And to have that contrast, that is how we can truly comprehend our true nature. And then he wants to know what it means to be special. What kind of special does he want to be? And he wants to be forgiving. How beautiful to get to fully experience what it means to be forgiving. And he realizes in order to be forgiving, he must have someone to forgive, which means that another soul must choose to do something that is hurtful and harmful to him. And a friendly soul steps forward and says, I will do that for you. I will lower my vibration and I will do something that you will need to forgive. I will do that for you. And the little soul is so excited, and he jumps up and he's like, you would do that? You would do that? You would give me this opportunity to experience what it's like to be forgiving? And the friendly soul says, yes, I would do that for you. I would do that because I love you. But will you do me a favor? In that moment when I do something that is so hurtful to you, will you remember who I really am? And they agree to this and to step into this life on earth in order to learn what it is like and truly experience what it's like to be forgiving and to see their light. And I think this story really highlights the beauty of the contrast in which we live in this world, in this life, and that there's so much compassion that we can give to others and to ourselves if we live in this belief and understanding. And since reading this book to my child, I have really taken a moment to think back of people in my life.
Yeah.
And I realized, oh my gosh, that heartache, that pain, such a feeling of being treated unfairly. Yet that person, I needed that experience to know what it was like to really take control of my life and what it meant to love myself, to take care of myself.
Yeah.
And I hadn't done that before.
Yeah.
I needed that. It gave me such a different lens to look through. When I think about, I don't really have much of a relationship or a strong relationship with either father figure that I had. And there's been a lot of pain, especially when I was a child around that.
Yeah.
And I look at that now and I can see, wow, it really gave me the gift of resilience.
Yeah.
It really gave me the gift of knowing how to form family, friends who become family.
Yeah.
Of opening my heart to that idea, even if it meant that it came from a place of not having much family at all.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful, because I'm also sitting here thinking of people who have, in my mind, wronged me or harmed me. And then also just that hope that the people that I've wronged and harmed will hopefully show me some compassion. But it's like, I was thinking of a C.S. Lewis quote where he says, God God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks to us in our conscience, and shouts to us in our pain. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world, or something like that. And so that it reminds me, because what you were saying, like, pain hurts, but it is the most brutal of teachers, you know? And and then the person, like, the wisdom that we possess today, probably all of it has come from pain. And I was thinking of forgiveness, and it's such a radical thought to look at somebody who has harmed you and hold that, like, just not release that, like, almost like that debt that they have. And but because I remember I used to be pretty generous with my money. I still am, but because like people, if I were to like loan somebody money, I would in my mind be like, oh, they don't ever have to pay me back. I'm not going to ever expect them to pay me back. And that was such a free, liberating thing to do. So like if somebody harms me and I look and I choose to still believe in their goodness, and I still choose to like show them grace and compassion and forgiveness, that's like forgiving that debt. And like they no longer have power over me. They no longer take up my mind space. It's like I see your humanness, and like, I'm choosing to believe who you truly are, and like that action, that thing, that harm was not who you truly are. I'm going to choose to believe that. That's a mature but like radical acceptance thing to do,
I think it allows us to live life with fewer walls disconnecting us. And I know we build those walls to stay safe.
Yeah.
To give ourselves a sense of perceived safety.
Right.
But it's such a dark enclosure.
Yeah. And it's so lonely.
Yeah. And I know that there's many people who listen because of the comments on YouTube who really feel like there's been too much darkness and their walls are too high and too tall. And gosh, I wish that I had a magic wand to show them differently. But if I don't, then I just want them to know that I'm really sending them a lot of care.
Yeah. Yeah. What if that is part of the healing journey, where it's like people can only afflict you if you allow them to, Well,
dear Eleanor Roosevelt said that in so many words. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent.
Yeah.
And I think that that's an important one. When I was in high school, I painted my room, and I painted it with all different quotes and things. And that was one that was in a prominent spot.
Yeah.
To remember, because I think our mind can, try to make us feel inferior. We've talked about that, this belief you have in yourself, whether that's a sense of feeling unworthy, unvalued, unlovable, unwanted in some way.
Yeah.
And so often, like I've said, it's like someone else's trauma bumping into our trauma.
Yeah. Man. And like, I was sharing, I don't remember if it was before we were recording or during while we were recording, but that place of peace where, like in my experience, like happiness has always been dependent on people giving me like happiness or, affirming me. But then that's like the opposite side of the spectrum, where it's like people can hurt you or make you happy, but at the end of but really, if you exist in that place of peace, then you're sort of immune to either one. The pains that people give you is if you are truly aligned with you and you live in peace, then like you can clearly objectively look at them and go, I'm not gonna take that personally. That's just them having a human experience, and I'm gonna have to keep them at a little bit distant from me.
That's your choice.
Yeah.
Your choice in you protecting you is knowing boundaries, which is different than a wall.
Right. Yeah. But it's like, but I'm not gonna take it personally. I'm not gonna carry it. But then also the same, like this person makes me happy. It's like, no. your happiness is nobody else's responsibility. Like my happiness is like nobody else can make you happy. People can like douse your fire with like joyful oil, but
I think in terms of like relationship, it's because I'm very happy with my husband.
Yeah.
But if I could describe it, it's like he's a soul and I am a soul that allow us to see the light in each other more brightly.
Right.
So it's really our ability to see ourselves with more clarity.
Yeah.
That is this beautiful gift that we get.
Yeah. But it comes,
and it just regulates our nervous system. Like just a touch of the hand, and both of us are just like, and I'm sure our heart rate goes down. Like we just feel it. We can feel it in our nervous system.
Do you think I can ask Zach to touch my hand?
I mean, you could try.
Okay. See if that'll
be really awkward for me. But yeah.
And it might regulate my nervous system.
Maybe
okay.
Maybe he has the magic
Maybe it's
touch.
just him.
He does give really great hugs.
Okay, I'm gonna have to ask him for a hug.
I have hugs. Don't tell him we had this conversation.
I know he will give me a hug. And then I'm gonna linger a little longer than normal. And he's gonna be like, okay, James, it's a little uncomfortable.
Okay.
Like, no, just let it be, Zach. Just like that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. He's gonna be like, what's going on? Yeah, I need to be present because I want to witness.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my only request.
Okay, definitely.
So in this episode, we meandered a bit, but I think we touched on the points that I really wanted to emphasize in terms of, how can we loosen this idea of life being fair and insisting that it must when it isn't?
Yeah.
When it isn't. But are there still lessons? Are we still challenging ourselves to live to our values?
Yeah.
Are we getting everything we are able to from this opportunity to be here amid the darkness and to find our light? And I was steeped in so much fear as one example. I was steeped in so much fear of this podcast and this endeavor of being so transparent, of being seen in the beginning of our journey. And I've really been able to transform that into what an exciting opportunity to share what's in your heart.
Yeah.
And like, what an exciting opportunity, even if there is any kind of negative feedback or something, to navigate that with this belief system in place.
Yeah.
And an opportunity to learn and to grow. And that changes then the fear. It can eliminate that fear quite quickly and turn it into excitement.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when we started this, I was in a really deep, dark place, and it like gave me like meaning. Like it was like a reason to like live, And so, I totally resonate with what you just said, where it's like how exciting that we can be authentic, and it's a light for people.
Yeah. That us getting to do that, finding that, and having these conversations,
what a gift.
It feels so fun.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for being on the journey.
Yeah, same to you. And same to you.
And same to you, everyone who's listening. Thank you so much, Delightful Humans. We love every second of it, and we want to be able to continue providing you with this content. So please check us out on YouTube, especially where you can like, subscribe, and share. And what did I say the first time?
I think you said lipe.
Yeah, well, that's
short
a new
for a
word.
liposuction.
Yeah, don't do that. I mean, you could.
You could.
But
no judgment.
No judgment.
Some of you.
I'm not seeking that. I'm seeking for you to like.
Okay.
Subscribe and
not
share.
liposuction. Okay.
Yeah. And if you are interested in doing any work with me, you can also check out the link in the description of this podcast, where I am doing free 30-minute discovery calls to see if we'd be a good fit to work together. And I have some exciting programs coming up and offerings. So check that out if you are inclined. And what I also noticed, James, is I believe we only have 5% of the people who view our content on YouTube are subscribed. So we need to shoot for higher. I would love for our goal. We'll start small. We've got to start reasonable. 10%.
Okay.
So if you've watched our content, please go to YouTube and subscribe.
Yeah. I was going to also say, if you'd like to work with me, I CrossFit. Just wanted you guys to know that.
Oh dear. Yeah. Again, like if we had like a drinking bingo chart, or, and I mean, I'm not trying to promote alcohol, just a bingo chart in general. Mm-hmm. That'd be a square.
That I CrossFit? Or how many times I say it?
Yeah, how often it's mentioned.
It hasn't been mentioned for several episodes.
You're right. But
I have been CrossFitting that whole time.
It gets a mark on the board. Yeah. Oh, dear.
Sorry, I'll say it off air, but goodbye.
Bye, everyone. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye-bye.